Why good people are drawn to bad. Jung on dangerous attraction. Have you ever wondered why that friend of yours, you know, the one who's kind, responsible, has their life together, keeps falling for people who are clearly bad news? Or maybe you found yourself inexplicably drawn to someone who's clearly trouble, even though you're usually so level-headed. This pattern is so common, it's become a cliché. The good girl who can't resist the bad boy, the stable, dependable person who keeps getting entangled with chaotic, destructive partners. The helper type who's constantly attracted to people who need fixing. But why does this happen? Is it just bad luck, poor judgment, a secret desire for drama? Carl Jung, one of history's most profound psychological thinkers, had a fascinating explanation for this pattern, one that goes far deeper than the simplistic advice we usually hear. According to Jung, these attractions aren't random mistakes. They're actually powerful psychological forces operating below our conscious awareness, drawing us toward the very qualities we've rejected in ourselves. Today, I'm going to reveal Jung's revolutionary understanding of why good people are drawn to bad, and how these dangerous attractions might actually hold the key to our psychological wholeness, if we understand how to navigate them. Let me start with something I witnessed firsthand. A close friend of mine, let's call her Sarah, was the definition of put together. Successful career, volunteer work, always there for friends and family. Everyone saw her as the responsible, caring one. Yet her dating history was a train wreck of relationships with unreliable, emotionally unavailable men who would take and take while giving little in return. After her third heartbreak in 2 years, she asked me, "What's wrong with me? Why do I keep choosing these guys when I know better?" This question gets to the heart of something Jung understood profoundly. These attractions aren't just about poor choices or low self-esteem. They're about something much deeper happening in our unconscious minds. At the core of Jung's explanation is his concept of the shadow, the parts of ourselves that we've rejected, denied, or pushed out of conscious awareness. These aren't necessarily bad qualities. They're simply aspects of our full humanity that we've decided don't fit our self-image or weren't acceptable in our family or culture. For someone like Sarah, who built her identity around being responsible, caring, and together, her shadow contained all the opposite qualities: selfishness, neediness, chaos, irresponsibility. She didn't allow herself to express or even acknowledge these qualities in herself because they contradicted her conscious identity as the good one. But here's the fascinating part. Jung discovered that whatever we reject in ourselves doesn't just disappear. Instead, it gets projected outward onto others. We become hyper-aware of these qualities in other people while remaining blind to their presence in ourselves. And here's the kicker. We're often intensely attracted to people who embody our shadow qualities. It's as if the psyche is trying to bring back into our lives what we've cut off from our conscious personality. Jung called this phenomenon projection of the shadow, and he believed it was one of the most powerful forces in human relationships, especially romantic ones. Think about it. The person who prides themselves on being logical and in control falls for someone wildly emotional. The nice person is drawn to someone with an edge. The responsible caretaker is magnetized by the free spirit who needs looking after. These aren't just random preferences. They're psychological compensations. Our unconscious is literally trying to balance our one-sided conscious personality by drawing us toward what we're missing. I've seen this play out countless times, not just with others but in my own life too. During a period when I was hyper-focused on achievement and productivity, I found myself deeply attracted to people who embodied a carefree spontaneity I wouldn't allow in myself. It was like my psyche was saying, "Hey, remember this part of life you're neglecting? Look how compelling it is." Jung's insight helps explain why these attractions feel so powerful, almost fated. They're not just physical or emotional attractions. They're psychological magnetism. The shadow qualities we see in the other person carry all the energy of our own repressed aspects, giving these connections an intensity that more suitable relationships often lack. This is why logical advice like "just date someone who's good for you" falls flat. The unconscious pull toward our shadow can be far stronger than conscious intentions. These attractions tap into something primal within us, the yearning for wholeness, for integration of all the parts of ourselves. But this doesn't mean all shadow-based attractions are doomed to be destructive. In fact, Jung believed these attractions could potentially lead to profound growth if we understand what's happening and navigate the process consciously. The key distinction is whether we recognize the projection for what it is. Most people never realize they are projecting their shadow onto their partners. Instead, they remain caught in a fascinating but ultimately frustrating dynamic. Intensely attracted to qualities they simultaneously judge or try to change. This is where things get dangerous. When we don't recognize our projections, we set up both ourselves and our partners for failure. We expect them to embody our shadow in ways that are appealing to us, while somehow not displaying the challenging aspects of those same qualities. For example, we might be drawn to someone's spontaneity and freedom from rules, qualities we've denied in ourselves, but then become frustrated when those same qualities make them unreliable or commitment phobic. We want them to be wild and free in ways that are convenient for us, which is an impossible demand. Even worse, when the relationship inevitably hits challenges, we often double down on our one-sided identity. See, this is why I need to be the responsible one, because they're so irresponsible. This only deepens the split within us, setting the stage for even stronger shadow projections in the future. Jung observed this cycle repeatedly. The more rigidly we identify with one side of a psychological polarity, the more powerfully we project its opposite onto others, and the more intensely we're attracted to, and later repelled by, those who embody it. This insight completely transforms how we understand attraction to the wrong people. It's not a character flaw or a streak of bad luck. It's a natural psychological process that's trying to restore balance to our psyche. The problem isn't the attraction itself. It's our lack of awareness about what's really happening. So, what's the alternative? Jung suggested a radical approach. Instead of trying to avoid these shadow attractions, we might need to engage with them consciously as opportunities for growth and integration. This doesn't mean recklessly pursuing destructive relationships. It means recognizing that our attractions reveal important information about the disowned parts of ourselves that are seeking expression and integration. When we feel that powerful pull towards someone who embodies qualities opposite to our conscious identity, we can ask, what is it about this person that fascinates me? What qualities do they express that I don't allow in myself? How might I need to integrate some of these qualities in a healthy way? I remember a client, a high-powered executive who prided himself on logic and control, who found himself inexplicably drawn to a free-spirited artist. Instead of either indulging this attraction blindly or dismissing it as inappropriate, he used it as information about his own psyche. What was he missing? Where had he become too rigid or controlled? How could he integrate more creativity and spontaneity into his life without abandoning his strengths? By asking these questions, he began to recognize and reclaim aspects of himself he'd long suppressed. He didn't need to pursue a potentially destructive relationship to benefit from the attraction's message. The pull he felt was simply his psyche's way of pointing out what he needed to develop within himself. This is the profound wisdom in Jung's approach. Our attractions aren't problems to be eliminated, but messages to be decoded. They show us the path toward greater wholeness by highlighting exactly what we've cut off from our conscious personality. Of course, recognizing projection is easier said than done. Shadow material is, by definition, unconscious. We can't see it directly because we've spent years pushing it out of awareness. This is why attraction to our shadow often feels like being under a spell. We're literally enchanted by seeing our own disowned qualities embodied in another person. Jung described this experience as feeling like destiny or fate. When we project our shadow onto someone, they seem to glow with a numinous quality that ordinary relationships lack. Everything about them seems significant, meaningful, as if they hold the key to some mystery. In a sense, they do, but the mystery is within us, not them. This explains why people often use supernatural language to describe powerful attractions. There was just something about them. I felt like I'd known them forever. It was like they could see into my soul. These aren't just poetic expressions. They're attempts to describe the psychological experience of encountering our own shadow in another person. The danger reaches its peak when these projections occur mutually. When two people project their shadows onto each other simultaneously, the resulting bond can be intoxicating but ultimately destructive if not made conscious. Jung called this a shadow dance, a relationship where each person is reacting not to the real human being before them, but to their own projected unconscious material. These relationships tend to move quickly from idealization to disillusionment, as the real person inevitably fails to match the projected fantasy. We've all seen these shadow dances play out. The whirlwind romance that turns toxic with stunning speed. The couple who seem magnetically drawn to each other, despite bringing out the worst in one another. The on-again, off-again relationship that neither person can seem to end despite obvious incompatibility. These patterns aren't just bad luck or poor boundaries. They're the natural result of powerful shadow projections operating without conscious awareness. What makes these attractions particularly dangerous is how easily they can be mistaken for genuine love or even spiritual connection. The intensity of projection creates feelings so powerful, they seem to transcend ordinary experience. People caught in these dynamics often insist, "You don't understand. what we have is special, even as the relationship becomes increasingly destructive. Jung was particularly interested in attractions between opposite personality types. He observed that introverts often project their shadow onto extroverts, thinkers onto feelers, intuitive types onto sensory types, and so on. Each type tends to project what they've underdeveloped in themselves onto those who embody these qualities naturally. This creates a particular kind of fascination. We're drawn to those who seem to effortlessly express qualities we struggle to access in ourselves. The organized, disciplined person marvels at their spontaneous partner's ability to live in the moment. The cautious individual is amazed by someone who takes risks without hesitation. The responsible caretaker is fascinated by someone who puts their own needs first without guilt. This fascination can be the beginning of genuine growth if we recognize it as a clue about our own underdeveloped potential, rather than evidence that the other person holds the key to our happiness. So how do we navigate these powerful shadow attractions more consciously? Jung suggested several approaches that remain remarkably relevant today. First, we need to develop awareness of our own psychological patterns. What parts of yourself do you identify with most strongly? What qualities do you reject or judge harshly in others? These are clues about your shadow. Next, pay attention to your strongest attractions and aversions. Both can reveal shadow projections. We're often either strongly attracted to our shadow qualities or strongly repelled by them, sometimes alternating between these reactions to the same person. When you feel an unusually powerful attraction, ask yourself, what qualities does this person express that I don't allow in myself? How might I need to integrate some of these qualities in a healthy way? The goal isn't to stop feeling attracted to certain types of people, but to understand what these attractions reveal about your own psychological needs. With awareness, you can begin to reclaim these projected qualities rather than seeking them exclusively in others. This doesn't mean becoming like the people you're attracted to. It means finding your own authentic expression of these qualities. The responsible person doesn't need to become irresponsible. They might need to develop healthy spontaneity and self-care. The logical person doesn't need to abandon reason. They might need to develop emotional awareness and expression. Jung believed that this process of shadow integration, recognizing and reclaiming our projected qualities, is essential not just for healthier relationships, but for psychological wholeness. As we integrate shadow aspects, our attractions often transform. We may still be drawn to similar qualities in others, but without the compulsive, unconscious quality that makes these attractions dangerous. I have witnessed this transformation in numerous clients. One woman who consistently fell for emotionally unavailable men began to recognize how she herself feared genuine intimacy despite her conscious desire for connection. As she acknowledged and worked with her own fear of vulnerability, her attraction to unavailable partners gradually diminished. She didn't stop finding certain qualities attractive, but the magnetic pole of the unhealthy pattern lost its power. This brings us to one of Jung's most profound insights. What we often call chemistry or attraction is frequently our unconscious recognizing itself in another person. We're drawn to people who express our own disowned potential, for better or worse. When we understand this, we can approach our attractions with a new level of awareness. Instead of asking, why am I attracted to the wrong people? We might ask, what does this attraction reveal about me? What parts of myself am I meeting through this person? This shift in perspective transforms our relationship not just with others, but with ourselves. Rather than seeing our attraction patterns as mistakes to be corrected, we can view them as guideposts on our journey toward wholeness. Of course, understanding the psychology behind these attractions doesn't mean we should pursue relationships that are genuinely harmful. Integration can happen without acting on every attraction. Sometimes the wisest response to recognizing a shadow projection is to appreciate its message while choosing not to engage with the person who triggered it. The real danger isn't in feeling these attractions, but in remaining unconscious about what's driving them. When we don't recognize our projections, we keep seeking outside ourselves what can only be found within. We chase relationship after relationship, hoping each new person will finally make us feel complete, only to experience the same disappointments when they inevitably fail to fulfill this impossible role. Jung's approach offers a path beyond this cycle. By recognizing our projections and reclaiming our disowned qualities, we can transform our relationship patterns from unconscious compulsions to conscious choices. This doesn't mean we'll never again feel drawn to challenging people. Shadow integration is a lifelong process, not a one-time achievement. But with growing awareness, these attractions lose their compulsive quality. We can appreciate what draws us to certain people without expecting them to complete us psychologically. Have you noticed patterns in your own attractions? Are there qualities you consistently find compelling in others that you might need to develop in yourself? These questions aren't just psychologically insightful, they're potentially life-changing if we engage with them honestly. Looking back at my friend Sarah's situation, her attraction to unreliable men wasn't a character flaw or bad luck. It was a clue about parts of herself she disowned in becoming the responsible one. As she began to recognize and reclaim her own needs, desires, and capacity for receiving rather than always giving, her attraction patterns shifted. She didn't stop appreciating certain qualities in partners, but she no longer felt that magnetic pull toward men who couldn't show up for her. The most beautiful part of Jung's understanding is how it transforms our view of these dangerous attractions. Rather than seeing them as mistakes to be eliminated, we can recognize them as meaningful psychological experiences, pointing us towards greater wholeness. They're not obstacles to finding love. They're opportunities to discover ourselves more fully. So the next time you feel that powerful, almost magical pull towards someone who embodies qualities opposite to your conscious identity, pause before either indulging the attraction or dismissing it as inappropriate. Ask yourself, what might my psyche be trying to show me through this fascination? What disowned parts of myself might I be meeting in this person? The answer could be the beginning of a profound journey toward integration, one that ultimately frees you to form relationships based on genuine connection rather than unconscious projection. As Jung himself put it, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Our attractions, even the dangerous ones, might be doing exactly that, if only we have the courage to look more deeply at what they reveal. If you found value in this exploration of attraction and the unconscious, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that dives into the depths of human psychology. Every day, we explore topics that help us understand ourselves and our relationships more deeply. Until next time, remember that your attractions aren't random. They're messengers with important information about your path to wholeness. The question is, are you ready to listen to what they're trying to tell you?